So when are you gonna make your next batch of jerky?
Oh, soon.
Do you have like? Did you use all the meat when you made that
Oh
super
yeah, of
salty?
course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I sure did. So,
What'd you put in it? What kind of meat was it?
it was a roast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Just
it
like
was just
pot roast.
yeah. It just whatever I could get a deal on at Safeway.
Oh,
A
okay.
big clump of stuff, cut it up myself, and
Did you just shave it like real thin or?
kind of
Yeah.
not that thin.
My dad used to do that. He used to like freeze it and then he would like leave it out for like half a day. So it got like really, so it was like spongy,
Yeah,
so he could cut it real thin. But he uses a smoker. What's that thing that you've got there?
that's a dehydrator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what inspired you to make beef jerky?
Well, at first I was thinking of making my own homemade dog treats. Um,
Oh, that's really cool.
well, I was. So, I mean, the here's the trick is you can either buy the expensive dog treats which are shaped like a little heart, right?
Yeah.
And you get a decent amount for like $12, but you have to buy these a lot, especially with the games that I play with her.
Hmm.
So that's when I decided that, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to buy one of those like turkey hams,
Hmm.
okay, every week, and then just like kind of cube it up and use those as treats, right?
It's not a bad
Which
idea.
works.
Yeah.
It's cheaper. She loves it,
Yeah.
right? But then the other thing I noticed was sometimes ham is a little bit wet.
Yeah.
And when I realized that I'm kind of throwing meat around my house. Now, I don't think it's really that big of a deal, but there will be a time eventually when I realize I've been hitting the walls with like little cubes of meat.
Right. Yeah. It's like dawn, getting close to dawn before dusk.
Yeah, and I guess I came to the conclusion that yes, I will repaint certain things. That's just how it's going to go. But yeah, I was like, what if I were to make something that's kind of like a drier meat that isn't, it's still meat she like, and won't put fat on the walls.
Yeah, that's gross. I think that's a really good thought, though, that you actually bought that to make treats for your dog, man.
That was the thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next batch will turn out better.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. The first batch came as close to physically killing me as you can.
Drinking water in Mexico.
I'll tell you, yeah, that was a running night too, and
Oh, you had to run that night?
yeah, sure did. And I don't know if my heart was beating harder, but it was beating differently.
I know how you feel. That's usually after I can tell that I've had way too many beers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, ooh, I'm going to have trouble sleeping tonight.
I slept okay, but yeah, that was part of the problem. Was yeah, I'm out there running, and I'm not hearing my heart beat behind my ears, but it's like, well, that's 5 beats really fast, then none for a while, oh, and like 3 intermittently, and then,
He's starting up like a tractor. So, or a
really,
lawnmower that's been
yeah,
there all winter. Yeah.
son of a bitch, yeah.
I know it's going to work.
I paid $200 for this
Right,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was I never thought that I would top out with the saltiest thing ever made, but I found it. And it was not something released by a company because they go to jail.
Yeah.
But I've hit the top end, and I walked away.
Well, I
had
doubt
to-
there's a salty snack out there that you haven't eaten at some point in time in your life. So you would naturally have to go and make it.
Right. Yeah, that's correct.
All right, that's a good opening story.
Oh, are you recording?
Yeah, we're alive, man.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, perhaps you should introduce yourself.
I'm Pat.
Who am I?
You're Jeff.
What are we doing?
Coffee before bed.
Great.
Before bed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure is.
We were gonna pump the Dutch Brothers tonight too, weren't we? You got a sticker from them.
Well, yeah, but they were giving them away.
Yeah, I didn't take one.
Well,
are you gonna put it on your car? Or?
No, I was just gonna like magnet it to my fridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It's
kind of curious.
small. I don't know. Nobody gives me stickers. Like there's.
I got a kid, so I get stickers sometimes.
Okay, I don't have one of those. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And we're talking about stickers for me, not for a child,
Right,
which then
yeah.
come to you.
Yeah. No, they wind up on my door or my fridge or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
It's like, dear, these aren't magnets. You have to scrape these off eventually. So
Yeah, that's why I was just gonna, put it up there with the magnets with the
okay.
show notes thing, which
Ooh, good call. Yeah. So no. I was in line to pick up my daughter the other day, and the car ahead of me had about 100 of those Dutch Brothers stickers, and they're all different.
oh,
Yeah, they're actually kind of hippie-ish. So,
kinda, yeah.
are hippies even still a thing?
What do you mean?
I don't know, man. So I guess I don't fully understand youth culture anymore. So I didn't know if that had come back around yet.
Well, I don't think it came back around that way. I mean, you will still. So, say for example, Drive the Manitou. You'll
Oh,
still
yeah,
see people wearing the clothes.
Yeah, but those
and-
guys were there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they were at Berkeley in '68.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So if you're asking if it's still a thing, sure, I guess
Okay.
you can find pockets of them just like your average Amish community. But
Yeah, I think I had one or two professors who were hippies.
oh yeah,
Qualified
yeah,
ones.
yeah, we both did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same one.
You think Warner?
I don't think I had her.
No,
So-
not she. This was a college professor. It was the guy that taught sociology.
I had a bald guy with a ponytail.
Yep, that's what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
all right, yeah, all right.
I think his last name was Warner.
I don't remember. I had him, and I had a black lady who was probably one of the original authors of CRT. She should have way back then.
What did she teach? What did she teach?
Sociology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because yes, I also had a Native American woman that taught communications,
Oh no, I never had one of those.
and
So-
he was very much. She was she was riding that train long before it was popular.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean I knew people 20 years ago who were riding that train.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was before any of that stuff was, like, even out of grad school. And the funny thing is, I would go to grad school and actually learn critical theory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like, nothing like what anybody had
It's
told
not
me what it
the
was.
popular version
It's
that's
not the
presented
popular
right
version,
now.
yeah. So, yeah. So then now they're all saying, oh, it's a legal theory. And I was like, well, it wasn't taught to me as a legal theory. So
How's it a legal theory? What's the argument
don't know,
to
man.
make it a legal theory?
I did not have the interest nor the desire to actually research that and figure it out. So,
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was kind of one of those things. It was like, all right, I know what critical theory is. I'm very familiar with the Frankfurt School and stuff like that. And so it's like, so you can have whatever kind of critical theory you want. It can be critical feminist theory. It can be critical queer studies theory.
Mm-hmm.
It can be, whatever lens you want to take a look at from a particular point of view. You could theoretically have critical Nazi theory. So if you wanted to look through the world through the eyes of a white supremacist Nazi, so, who signed up for the SS when he was 19 in 1942, you could technically do that.
We won't be starting that here, but
No.
I appreciate the thought. Yeah.
So, but that's the whole point. Is so behind critical theory is it's just taking a look at life through somebody else's lens. Okay, and typically you do it through the lens of somebody who's not in the majority. Okay,
Right.
and so if you're going to do critical Nazi theory, you wouldn't do it like in 1943. You would do it in 1946. So
I agree.
yeah, from within
Yeah.
the walls of Nuremberg, So with your former boss sharing a cell with you, So, but you could do that, and so the idea that it's specifically a race theory is, I mean, that's just not what I was taught.
No. I mean, I guess the thing is that there are pieces of this that it's interesting that they've gone ahead and scooped all of this together into one little bucket, right? And these are all the elements that they are now calling critical race theory. Whereas bits and pieces, it's sort of like the first iPhone. Apple didn't invent any of this shit, but they assembled the technology from existing things and put it all into one easily sellable package.
Okay, all right. So in that case, yeah, you can say that the engineers who were working for Steve Jobs did that. Who is doing this with critical race theory? I don't, because the original people who wrote that shit, this dates back to the 70s.
Yeah.
In fact, 2 of them are dead.
Right.
Okay. So who's doing it now? All right. Because like when I went through sociology classes, and this was 20 plus years ago at this point in time, that's probably the first place I actually ran into critical theory. It was never taught to me as explicitly a race theory.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, Patrick. I don't think anybody is, this is what I'm saying is, because it's just a selection of things, right? Look, if I go out into the street, okay, we're a lot of people are now hearing about critical race theory. Not one of them could probably give me an accurate definition, but they could probably tell me about some components of it that probably irritate them, right? Now, the fact of the matter is, I don't think anybody out there actively goes out there and says, I'm going to deliberately apply this to my classroom with very small,
I don't think anybody in the grade school level does that. I think you could probably find some AP teachers in the secondary. I guarantee you can find some folks in colleges.
Absolutely.
So,
but most of them aren't necessarily grabbing critical race theory trademark as the component, but they're taking elements from it, and that is what is identified as such. So, again, this is the piece. The critical theory part of it.
Sure.
I know way more about intersectionality, but those things are they teach them as though they are all part of the same thing, right? Because if I'm going to go back to that same Native American teacher that I had, right, in communications,
and this was a professor, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, okay,
yep. And I had friends that had blow-ups with her. I was not one of them. I was like, all right, whatever. This is your class. You teach whatever you want.
Sure.
Right. She was the one that again, this is something that people say over and over again, and they just say it and presume it's true. She was the first one that said that to me, that people of minorities were not capable of being racists.
Yeah, but so 20 years ago was about when that line of thinking started to come out of particularly education colleges. So yeah, it was about 20 years ago because I heard that even back then. So
it was relatively new.
It was, and it came from a specific line of thinking that represented a divergence, if I recall, from like some of the major like authors on race at the time. So
yes, because the prevailing thought on the street, so to speak, at that time was colorblindness, right?
Not in academia, though.
No,
definitely not in academia.
Okay, that's why I'm saying on the street. So
yeah,
that was the prevailing attitude, where you do not even want to acknowledge race. It is just everybody's the same.
Yeah,
don't acknowledge it. Right. Like if you were going to watch a basketball game.
Sure,
you have nothing to say. It's just, wait, 5 athletes on this side, 5 athletes on this side.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and so, right about the time when you and I were in college, that's where you had a minor school of thought that turned into a major school of thought down the road. There was actually, if you do that in some respects, it absolves everybody from actually addressing some of these inequities.
Right.
So, was the theory. But that wasn't, critical race theory was, an extreme offshoot of that. At the time.
It took that and ramped it up to about 45 on a scale of 10.
Yeah, but apparently not until last year.
Okay, so I'm going to say that current had been bubbling for about 5-10 years. I'd been seeing rumblings of that. But it hadn't, again, this is the kind of stuff that when you break it down and say, just like you're talking about, failing to address it is racist in and of itself.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, this is the same
Yeah, that's newer. That wasn't going on back then.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And what you're talking about here is also the same time that phrases like white fragility and white privilege came up.
Well, that's Robin DiAngelo, man.
And that's I placed that about 5 years
Did
ago.
you read a book?
No.
You should. It's excruciating. You should read it. It's pretty quick. So, I'm not endorsing the book on the podcast.
You can if you want to. Even if you even
No,
if
I
you do,
wouldn't.
that's still
So, but I did read it. So, um, yeah, it was kind of an interesting period where I was reading that, and I was actually reading Ibram X. Kendi, and then I also read, of course, like my favorite guy's always been Cornel West.
Mhm.
So, but he's very.
a lot of people do not like him.
There's a lot of people that don't like him, yeah. So on both sides of the fence of just about everything, because he's actually fairly consistent in the shit that he has to say. So there are a lot of people who just don't like what comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that. And yes, he is a little bit of a showman.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but he does have his academic chops. So he's one of the few guys who actually participates in those debates who does have his academic chops. So, yeah, he's probably the most well-read man I've ever heard speak. So,
Yeah, I can't place a person.
yeah, no, I mean, well, I haven't heard too many people like him speak in public, but he was the one. He would actually chain together like the entire like gamut of Western lit that led us to kind of where we are right now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So it's like I've read some of those books. You told me about that long one in there that I didn't finish. So
Yeah, and I guess So here's the rub that I have on this is it's hit a point where a lot of the components of this are things that you are just supposed to accept as fact,
yeah,
regardless of what the data says.
Yep.
Or there's no backing on it to go back and say like, okay, well, if you say this, what is your argument for it? Because again, this is in schools right now. They are teaching students that white privilege exists, right? And this is something that is based off of the concept of institutional racism.
How
right?
ubiquitous do you think that is, though?
I don't think it is at all.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna tell you. So the problem is, you say it exists, you teach people it exists, right? But then when you go down to the metrics of it, there's zero evidence of it.
No, I mean the teaching of that. How prevalent do you think the teaching is?
Oh, well, I can give you examples from the students that are bringing me work.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I'm curious about this because, like, I don't know. I can't see, like, in too many instances beyond, like, students who are already fairly advanced where your teacher even remotely has time to touch on this shit. I mean, where are you going to get it? You might get it in, like, a social studies unit. You might get it like in a situation where, like in a middle school where you have the cross-curricular bullshit that they do.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, we're going to have a black unit now, and so I have to find something black math to teach you, whatever that is.
That happens.
No, I don't think that it happens as much as people think it does. Because to tell you the truth, especially with the COVID and all that stuff, I mean, if I'm sitting there and I'm on a Zoom call with 30 kids, I'm not talking about this shit. So I got to try and actually get them all to get their homework in.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can speak to that in terms of what the literature is that's being brought to my attention in terms of what they need to write on and study.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I loaned you some of my Norton anthologies a while back, right?
Yes.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
These are huge books,
Uh-huh.
right? Very comprehensive, very big selections of British and American literature.
Yeah, I think you gave me the Britlit one. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have given you.
I needed it for a class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had two of the Brit-lit ones, enormous, two of the American lit ones, Shakespeare, and a couple other addendums. So I've read all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. What I can tell you is, let's go to a high school class, and keep in mind that you cannot go at the same pace as a college course, right?
Sure, yeah.
So what I can tell you is that the the works that they're reading and the topics they're approaching them with in terms of what their subjects are, this is not a thing against Toni Morrison. She's a good writer. But if you're going to cover an English class, okay, there are a lot of other pieces of literature that you would get to before you got to Beloved.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm not, again, it's not a knock against her, right?
Sure, but
And,
yeah, go for it.
well, and so here's the thing, is if this was the piece that you wanted to introduce and say, we have to break this up, we have to be inclusive with our work, that's fine, right? But then the very next piece that the student brought to me was Invisible Man, which is not the H.G. Wells version, right? This is the mid-50s version about black inequality. One book after the other, right? It's a fictional book about black inequality. So they're like, okay, well, these
Is that Brit Lit as well?
that's American.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're both American.
Oh, so I see. Okay, so you're talking like an Lit survey course.
Right, this is what I'm saying. And if this is in high school, and if these are the two books you read back to back,
Yeah.
then what I can tell you is that is a deliberate choice to say these have been historically defined as the classics for a reason because of these elements. We are not going to teach those. And the papers that they've been asked to write about are all about racial inequality.
Now, but most of your kids are exceptionally wealthy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be paying my rates if they weren't.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, I would argue that I think that probably does exist in some of your more, like, elite schools, whatever that might be. Whether they're paid or whether they're, like, the best high school in town. You know,
Well, I
kind of
will say
thing.
that these are not private schools.
Yeah. No, I get that. But I'm guessing that your kids don't live in the hood. So,
No.
right. So,
They do not.
yeah, they're not getting taught by Eddie James almost. So, yeah.
Nope.
So, I don't know, though, man. I mean, I've been thinking about it in some respects lately, and I'm wondering if it's just going to be like what history was 20 years ago. All right? So, because I remember coming out of high school and studying history, and immediately you were disabused of about half the shit you thought you knew.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
like otherwise you weren't going to proceed in that degree. You know, I mean, nowadays they probably take you anyway just because they need money. So, but, you know, back then it'd be like, no, this isn't for you. You know, so just because it's like you can't look at this objectively, you're hung up on the size of the width of German Panzer shells, you know, and things like that.
This is not that
This is
kind
not
of
for you,
class.
yeah.
Yes.
So kind of thing. And I'm kind of wondering, like, you know, so someone goes and they go through an AP English course and they get bombarded with mediocre literature, which I think we can call it compared to what's actually available. So I'll make that leap. Right there. You get exposed to mediocre history too. I've seen it all the time.
Oh no, I totally understand.
Yeah.
And I'm not, Patrick. I'm not fighting on this. As a matter of fact, when I was still in school, okay, one of the things that was constantly brought up within the English program, there was a guy, and he said it dead on. He said this was the 5th or 6th time that we were reading The Wife of Bath's Tale, right?
Oh,
from
yeah.
Chaucer. He said, why do we keep coming back to
Right.
this? Okay.
Yeah.
Why are all these classes teaching this particular piece? Is it just because it is one part of a, he didn't say like feminist agenda, but there was a lot of, we have to
Yeah.
find female authors to elevate.
Yeah, and there's one from that entire thing. Yeah. So same thing with like Native American
sorry.
work. Oh yeah, this is the place where the thing is.
Hold on.
But same thing with the Native American work. Unless you're actually going to take the time to learn the language and actually learn oral tradition, the literature is terrible. So,
correct.
you know, well, that's because it wasn't a literate society. I mean, this just makes fundamental sense. So, but if you're actually going to like do a survey of lit across the board and you're going to cherry pick from some of those individual things, that's corrective work that needs to be done then at the next level. So, and so that's why I'm wondering if it's just going to be like history. So if you actually get into literature and you say, oh, I want to be a writer, kind of thing, it's like, oh, okay, so all that stuff that you read, The Wife of Bathil, you'll never see it again. Okay, because this is Mary Shelley, and you need to read this book because it's good.
Well, all right, it is good, but also, I mean, there are problems with it. I'm going to say
I
that.
get it, man.
But
I'm not going to get in a lit debate with you.
well,
So-
what I will say is, above all else, it's actually interesting. It's a unique idea, and more to the point, it represents an entire era of literature, possibly better than any other singular work could do.
No, I understand.
It is based on the context.
Yeah, but it's
and
not
the-
something you're
yeah.
going to teach in high school if you have to cram in all this other stuff where you actually have to touch on different genres from different authors from different ethnic backgrounds.
I did.
So, huh?
I did.
You did what?
I did Frankenstein.
Yeah, no. I mean,
Oh, well,
yeah, no, I know you did.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but I mean, it sounds like your students aren't going to get it.
Well, they got it. Well,
Oh, okay.
and keep in mind, I could do that because Mary Shelley's a woman, right?
Oh, okay.
That's one
Yeah,
of the things
all right.
that is on those tick boxes of, oh, okay, well, don't just stick to.
Yeah, but remember when we were in like high school, they used to teach us the Bible. So I don't think I don't think you're going to see the Book of James on there. So anywhere. So on any reading list anymore.
It's unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, I think who was it? They made us read Job.
Read the Book of Job.
Yeah,
yes.
I read the Book of Job.
That was on the summer reading list.
It was on the summer reading list for AP English. And so I don't really think that you're going to see things like that on there like you used to. And so the question is, okay, so again, going back to like corrective. See, because like the thing that's interesting about academia, and so like some people would say like, oh, well, they all think the same. And that is totally not true.
Not by a
No.
fucking
I mean,
wide margin.
yeah, if you get your hands on a class at the college level where you have complete academic freedom, I mean, nobody's going to come to you in that situation and say, oh, well, Jeff, you're teaching this survey lit course as an adjunct professor or something like that. Here's the book for this, and the book's going to be an anthology just like Norton, and they're not going to sit there and say, you need to teach this, this, and this. They're going to be like, have at it. And you
That's
can
why they
pick
hired
what's
you.
out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no. And so it's like the same thing with my courses now. It's one of those things where like I think I had like one instance where I was like, well, should I teach this? And I went and asked my chair, and he's like, that's why we pay you to figure that out.
Yeah.
He and I were cool ever since, and that was like 7 years ago. So, and so that's been my experience. And so like when I see like like the news get all foamy at the mouth about like critical race theory, either one way or the other. All right, so because of course Fox News has their own reaction to it now that is also completely irrational in a lot of respects, because like literally they're just thinking that it's like a hive mind mentality that's going on in education. All right, and it's horseshit. All right, it might not be at your level. I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking. So
It's not. Well, it exists. It is there. There's. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't completely tip my hand in terms of what I generally think about all this, but
well, you don't like it. I know that.
I'm not saying that I don't like it, and I'm not saying that the perspective is not valid, and I'm not saying there aren't interesting topics within it. However, any full adherence to this line of thinking or this doctrine is self-defeating and stupid.
Well, it's going to suffer from backlash too. It's coming.
I could give a fuck about the backlash.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is that it is self-defeating. It is ultimately looking down on the people it is supposed to protect.
Oh,
It
yeah,
is,
no.
and that is insultingly bad as far as I'm concerned.
That's why the youngest generation hates this shit. Okay? They absolutely fucking hate it. So, I mean, like anybody who points out, oh, well, it's all the millennials and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not.
No,
You
the
don't
millennials are the
understand.
one that bought into this shit.
Kind of. But,
Well,
yeah.
that first half, yeah.
Yeah, but they're all in the workforce now. They don't
Exactly,
fucking matter
yes.
anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. So, but like the back half, which I'm seeing the tail end of that generation, generation theories bullshit. Anyway, let me rant on
get
that.
this out. Yeah, go ahead. Let's
I'm
lay
not
that
gonna
out
rant
there
on
because I agree with you completely. Go ahead and trash generational theory while you're at it.
I
I'd
don't
love for you
even
to.
know if it needs like my kind of like 2 cents on it anymore, man. Just because it's like so ridiculous that people identify like so quickly. It's like, oh, you're a bigot when you talk anything about race or something like that, but then they'll immediately turn around and trash older people.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, doesn't that make you an ageist? So, well, let me read all these listicles about why boomers suck.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh, let's just replace boomer with black people.
If you can't do it, it's racist.
It's racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, okay. And so my major, I'll just put the stake right in the heart.
Do it.
The whole fucking thing comes from two guys who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So they were wannabe pretend historians. One of them was actually from Yale, and just because he was from Yale, everybody's like, "Oh, you must be smart." He wasn't a historian, and so they just basically wrote a book for popularity's sake, trying to predict cycles. All right, and that's turning theory in like how American history progresses. But if you take a look at it, they completely drew circles around, like they shot arrows and then drew circles around all the arrows.
Yeah.
So it's absolute horse shit. There is no such thing as a millennial. So there is no such thing as a Gen Xer. So the whole thing is basically there is one statistically significantly determinable generation in the United States of America.
Is it after World War II?
It's 3 years after World War II. It is from 1946 to 1948.
I would say in a period that started. I don't know. You would have to look approximately 9 months after to begin this, and then yes.
You don't even see a bump like that after the Civil War. So it is the only one ever at all in all of history. It's the only determinable generation, and it's 2 fucking years.
At least what I can't tell you is I cannot tell you if there was something like that happened after say the London Fire or
Sure,
I don't know. I don't know.
We don't have records.
Right. The end of the bubonic plague. All I can tell you is about the advances in workers' rights afterwards.
Yeah.
But I can't necessarily say that that's a generational thing. But in terms of actually being able to measure it,
yeah, it's baloney. So well, in the United States, I mean, we've had mandated census since the Constitution, so we have the data. I mean, and it's actually remarkably accurate because it determines how many seats you get in Congress. And that's kind of clever. All right, and so there's only one bump in the U.S. population ever. So the rest of it, and that's the whole thing. The whole Strauss and Howe theory is all based on America. They don't even talk about fucking England. So yeah. And then to turn around and say like, oh well, the Brits had a Gen X, and it's like, no, actually these guys just talked about America. You guys made that shit up afterwards because you're part of that generation and you think it's fucking cool. So,
right. Okay. So my biggest problem with this, and this is all right, maybe we can't dive into this. Maybe we can bitch a little bit because it is fun and it's relevant and it is coming up a lot right now. But people like to conflate movements with generation. And they also they love to presume that everybody was in on that movement.
Mm. Oh, we were already talking about hippies tonight. You know how tiny of a portion of the population that was? It was like 500 guys in Berkeley who didn't bathe for 2 months.
Yes, and I will argue that there were also there's a knock-on effect where there were like hippie adjacent peoples or that kind of thing, hippie sympathizers. I don't want to use that.
Well, they would travel across campuses and things like that, and then start up new ones. And other dudes would see them on TV or go to the concerts and things like that. I mean, you're talking about a 4 or 5 year spread there. Where it did kind of turn into a movement, but it started out with like 200 fucking guys.
Yeah.
So yeah. It wasn't the entire nation started wearing bell bottoms.
And how can you evidence that? Because if you ever bring that up to somebody who was there, who lived in that time period, and you say, hey, can you go in your closet and get me some of your bell bottoms?
Right.
They will typically answer you 90% of the time based on the statistics.
I wasn't a fucking hippie.
Fucking, it's like your dad voted for Nixon twice.
Yeah, my dad voted. No, he voted for him 3 times.
Oh shit! All right. Well, okay. Well, that's that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is there's a lot of people that like to take credit for that. The bigger question is, was that a popular movement against people or with people who were making media at the time? The answer is yes. No, it is.
Making media?
Yeah, movies, essentially.
Oh, I thought you were
Movies
talking
and
about
music.
like Cronkite.
Right.
So
was that movement popular with people that were making media? So yes, because a lot of people are going to define what a movement was based off the media at the time.
Yeah, if media even exists at the time, like, I mean, you can reach back far enough. You can find movements that have nothing to do with popular media, but they're immensely popular, like the Great Awakening. So
yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just, I mean, all those things have kind of like a meme kind, and meme's not even a thing either. So, I don't want to get into Richard Dawkins, man. I'm kind of down on him right now.
Why
So,
why is he on your bed?
I think he's an asshole. So I think he enjoys being an asshole, and I've kind of got a radar for that. So he's kind of lit up as a bandit, not a bogey anymore. So,
Well, with Dawkins, I don't think your assessment is really far up. Okay, I don't. I think
I'm not saying anything about what he has to say. It's just the manner in which he says it is fucking rude.
no, of course.
So-
And for me, like if you're trying to, adjust your radar and you're setting it to detect assholes,
Yeah.
you'll find him. You will. I mean, even if
He
he's
did kind of show up, yeah.
even if he's wearing white clothes and a snowstorm, you can just point the detector. You'll find him in there. Yeah, it'll be.
Yeah.
But the thing about Dawkins is, I don't think that he's ever tried to hide it. I think that
Yeah.
I can respect it because that's what he's been from the start. This isn't, say, like a Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens. Well, you're.
Yeah.
I think he tried to present himself as a certain thing,
Yeah.
but I think the truth of Secret Asshole eventually came out because I think he's kind of a prick.
Yeah, I think he enjoyed like burning people. So
He roasted
yeah.
Mother Teresa, which is fine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Okay,
he
which is
did.
fine because there was shit in there that she was doing that I can't agree with.
I don't know anything.
I
about
wasn't
her,
there.
so, yeah.
But the story that was presented about some of the things that happened under her name, let me say.
Sure.
Okay, the Bochese, Gonksy, whatever her name is, but Mother Teresa. But later on, that guy,
Oh, before he died, he was getting pretty salty.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really listen to him that much back then. So because he's been dead a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when he was kind of hot shit though.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, after Hell's Angel, he was huge.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like Jordan Peterson though. Kind of came out of nowhere too.
He did well. Some people really know how to strike when the iron's hot, and
Oh yeah, that's a good
that
point.
dude.
Yeah, he did that.
Nobody gave a shit about him until that media incident blew up, and then
Oh,
suddenly.
the England one.
Oh no! I'm talking about the
Oh,
initial,
the previous one. Yeah. Okay.
the Evergreen College incident
Yeah.
that propelled him to
Yeah.
being the guy that is speaking for a generation. You can't see the air quotes,
yeah.
but the silent
you
majority
definitely
of
got dick
people
quotes going on,
that the silent majority of people that have had enough of this shit.
Oh my god, I've had it up to here. And like the ironic thing is like that's kind of my point back to your students. That's kind of school where your students would go. where they could join the hive mind, so because I don't know, man. I mean, like okay, so part of my PhD, there was one class that I was teaching with my chair, and she had arranged like visits to all the local colleges around here.
Okay.
Okay, and it was really interesting because there were a couple of them that I hadn't really gotten like involved with, and one of them was, of course, CC. That school is so fucking different than any other school.
That it is.
I mean, it's not even crazy.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we did time at the academy, we did time with like trade schools, we did time at PPCC, and stuff like that. I mean, I had taught at some of those schools, for crying out loud, so I was very familiar. But then going to like CC, it was like, you're gonna vacation in Macau. Cool. Are you gonna be able to turn in your paper before then? Oh yeah. And it's like, you're not gonna write it, are you? You know, so you're just gonna read what has been written and then put your name on it. Aren't you? Yeah, it was crazy, man. But then like there was like insanely smart kids there too,
Very much so.
who were just so far up their own ass at that point in time. It's like, man, I mean, God help you, you have to change a tire someday, boy. So, you know, I love you, man, but I'll worry about you, you know, kind of thing. And then, you know, so like, I mean, like, and then Jordan Peterson and the Evergreen, and who was the other guy up to Brett Weinstein. It's just like, okay, so yeah, you've got this, like, I mean, literally like this nest of murder hornets, you know. And then you're gonna go out there and you're gonna start podcasts and you know spread the word that this is happening everywhere in the United States of America. And it's like, I haven't seen it. I've seen touches of it at the education school. Okay, but that's just because I mean that's always been the most lefty of leftist kind of schools in any.
Yeah.
I mean they put
Yeah.
sociology departments to shame. I mean that's where they all come from. So to tell you the truth. But still, at the same point in time, there's still rational minds within them. So, you know, they're not like rare either.
No. Well, so this is the piece that I've been advocating for a while, is that, again, to dovetail back into the components of critical race theory as it's presented. Okay, now I'm not talking about the popular version. I'm talking about the pieces that compose the whole thing, right? Including intersectionality and all these things. My argument here is that just like
Is that actually part of the original theory?
no,
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
Okay.
not that I can recall.
I haven't gone back and actually read that stuff. So,
Not that I can recall. I don't think that was a big piece of that, but I could be wrong. I think there may have been a component of it, but they certainly didn't sell it as a multiplier effect in a pinball game the way that it is now. It's like,
oh, right, yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
oh, well, you're trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Oh,
Right.
okay, you have lack of privilege. Why? It's like, oh, okay, because you're minority. Oh, and you're gay. Oh, and you're trans.
Yeah,
oh, and you
you're
have
trans. Yeah, and you have, you know,
You're
came from a single
neurodivergent.
parent house.
Yes,
Yeah, you're
and-
neurodivergent. Yeah.
you know, when it comes down to it, because again, I hate to always come down to it, is right, that's good and all, but still, when it comes down to work, coffee's for closers only. It doesn't matter what these things are. It matters if you can put shit in it, like, can you move product?
yeah,
right.
in some jobs. Yeah.
Well, yeah, or whatever it is, whatever the deliverable is, can you get it there?
Yeah.
Right? And if you can't, then it doesn't matter how neurodivergent, whatever, is on the table. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, you can't perform. Right?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't buy into the complete meritocracy idea of things, though. I mean, I've seen it, the other side of it, where it's like literally who you know.
Absolutely.
You
But
know,
I've
yeah.
also been at places where, all right, here are the numbers.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah,
All right, if you're not delivering,
Yeah.
you have 2 months to get this up.
Yeah.
The same thing with certain policies of, can't help you, you're late 3 times,
yeah.
which is fucking ridiculous. But I'm not gonna touch on that.
I've used it.
Yeah, I know you've used it. I've only used it in service of something else. Whereas, okay, you've done this. This is not necessarily a reportable offense. However, this plus the
Yeah, I gotta
lateness.
get rid of you.
Yeah, right. So yes, but that all goes into that same category of you're not delivering.
Sure.
Okay. Whereas, yeah, if you were delivering and you were late every day of the week, I mean, if you were top performer, you're late every day of the week, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, unless that's what's more important.
Right,
You know,
right.
which
Sometimes they clamp down on,
yeah.
because other people start being late too, right?
Well, that was always my strategy. I'd always enforce strict attendance policy just because it fixed so many other fucking problems. So,
Yeah. But
and then I have a guy who's like, oh, I'm your best performer. It's like, I don't give a shit, man. You're getting uppity on me. Be here on time. It's part of performing. So, but anyway, that's a divergence.
yeah,
Yeah.
I want to shower you with praise, but I have to burn you for this.
Yep, I'm going to have to. Well, yeah, I'm not going to apologize for it either. Yeah.
Yeah. But back to the point, the problem with that is, like all things, it's best to actually look at the components in there that actually make sense. If you buy the whole thing wholesale, right? The collection of ideas are, like I said, completely non-functional, self-defeating, worthless.
No, they're all
Okay?
designed to design a. They're all stitched together to serve a purpose that is contrary to what it espouses. I think you're absolutely right about that. When you were first making that point, where it absolutely hurts the people that it's supposed to help.
Right, but I
Yeah.
think what we would agree on is that there are components in there that are worth study and
Oh, absolutely.
taking with you and saying,
Yeah.
yes, you should be observant of this, right?
Yeah.
Or this, or this, or I don't believe in this, but this.
Yeah.
But as a package,
No, you can't swallow the whole thing.
but a lot of people want you to swallow the
Yeah,
whole
they
thing.
do because it serves their purposes.
course.
So it's really simple. I mean, but like, I mean, if you just go back to like even basic critical theory, like the Frankfurt School, and then you can take it in a lot of different directions. The one that I always found the most useful was actually the class conflict one. So, which I mean, Marx outlaid the first one, but I mean, there are people in critical theory circles who like really developed that one. It's like, do you understand what it means to be poor? So, if you understand that and you go through your ramen days like you and I have, you have a little bit more appreciate. That's critical theory right there, you know. Or it's like, yeah, I've actually wondered about like, you know, am I gonna die because I don't get enough vitamins from eating ramen? So,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, on top of that too is, do you have an idea what it's like to be poor here versus poor
Sure.
in Africa?
Yeah.
Or in
Yeah, right.
China?
Or in China,
in
North Korea. Yeah. So, yeah. And, you know, I mean, that's where some of that stuff starts to get a little bit, you know, okay, so how much poor do you actually need to experience
Exactly,
in order to
yes.
actually take that away? And so the argument that I think a lot of people are making right now is like, well, especially with intersectionality and things like this, you know, that pinball multiplier kind of thing is like, well, this is someone that you should really take into consideration, you know, because of all these different things. And it's like, well, okay, I mean, like I understand, like going through like a like if you're gonna do a sex change thing. Okay, I can empathize with you on a certain level. That's got to be horrifyingly terrifying. So in some respects, all right. So I seen a guy on YouTube do it, and it did not go well. You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was like, hey, good on you for actually doing that out in public, man.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
that's awesome. And so, but at the same point in time, all right. So how much of that do I need to actually, you know, experience or like empathize with in order to kind of get the point? You know, this is fucking scary. Got it. All right. So no, it's really fucking scary. No, I understand. It is really fucking. No, it's really, really, really fucking scary. It's like
I get it.
I think I get it. Yeah.
You are scared.
yeah,
Yes.
you are scared. I think I
But
get it now.
the issue here is that you're taking a YP and you're making it a my problem, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm not going to let you
Yeah.
do that because,
Right.
all right, we've talked about this before where based on this same line of thinking, that implies that you have to have an equal amount of level of concern for all things that are discerned important. And nobody can make those decisions for me but me.
Yeah.
Because if you look at that, I should feel the same amount of empathy for people in Haiti. I should feel the same amount of empathy for people in Africa, for people that are going through It's like I can't parse it out and say I cannot be concerned at all times.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm fucking human. You know.
And there's
So
no version of this where a person can plead and say, "Look, this is the history of capers I've gone through on my journey to be Jeffrey to Jeffalina." Okay,
right.
and there's no amount of that you can give me that will supersede any amount of sympathy and understanding that I have for a close friend or relative.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right.
That's proximity principle, man.
Of
I mean,
course.
that's normal.
Right.
So
And then it comes to the next logical part of, well, I will respect you,
sure.
but don't ask me to care because I don't.
Yeah.
This is
I've only got so much of that to give. Yeah.
this is the journey you've taken, and that's absolutely fine. If you ask me again, you know, from all the encounters I've had, most have been nice, and most of it's like, okay, well, how would you like me to address
I've
you?
never had an encounter.
Yeah, I have, but it's just like, well, how would you like me to address you? Sometimes it's not even brought up.
Yeah.
It's like,
I've had other people like more often hypothesize about how you should behave in that situation. He's like, oh, well, here's all your email tags that you need to put up there and stuff just in case. And it's like, well, if I run into someone like that, why don't I ask? Kind of thing. So,
You just crossed the Bartleby line of
the Bartleby line.
yeah, are you making me or are you
Or are you
suggesting?
suggesting? Yeah. So I'd prefer not to.
Yeah. So if this is an order, I want it in writing, and I will go ahead and change all of my email tags or whatever.
Yeah.
If this is a recommendation,
Yeah.
fuck you.
Well,
we
no,
will
I
deal with
never
that as
say
it comes
fuck
up.
you to a
No, of course, this is a.
recommendation, but yeah. But at the same point in time, I kind of get your emphasis right there, if not necessarily the gusto behind it. Yeah.
You know what You know what? Sometimes where you have to ask, is this an order, sir?
Yeah.
Right.
I've done that. Yeah. It's like, is this what you want me to do?
Right.
I need you to explicitly say I want you to do this.
Okay. And then sign here, right?
I don't think I've ever asked for something in writing.
Oh, shit! That was a we knew a guy that was in mortgage lending, and
Oh yeah.
when certain decisions would come up that were
This is all pre 2008 too.
yeah.
So funny that he turned out to be right.
Well, all right. To his credit, that guy does poo-poo everything. So
That's true.
when you have one specific stand,
Yeah.
it will turn to shit eventually,
Yeah, it
and so.
Well, when you predict rain every day, eventually you're going to be right. Yeah. That was definitely it.
Yeah. So he did have times where, okay, I'll do this, but you have to. I need your name right here because it's not going to be mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
And that was along racial lines too.
It was. Yeah. So
That was modern day red line.
it kind of was. Yeah. Yeah.
So, by the way, yes, that does still happen. It is not.
Does it?
Well, if you want to consider that recent,
I guess, man. It's been 25 years. So
25 years.
20 years.
We'll go 20.
Yeah.
We'll go 20.
I don't know. I think like a lot of that got shook out in 2008. I mean,
Maybe
guess
that's
still,
it.
I
Yeah.
think it's more like white flight is probably still more of a thing. So rather than actual red line. So
But what is that? What is
it's just people upgrading their circumstances and moving to a nicer neighborhood. That's all it is. You have to look at it from the individual level and understand that there's an individual decision that is different than the collective outcome. So, it's literally like, okay, when birds flock from a tree, okay, who actually decides where we go? Well, is it any one of them? Kind of thing. So
No, not really.
No, not really.
I mean-
So yeah, it's just kind of this feeling, and so eventually you're like, oh, maybe I can afford a den, So, ooh, what would be cool? A 3-car garage. So, kind of thing. And I think that actually transcends racial lines too, man. So, I mean, when you get to a certain point where it's like, oh, I have money, I'm leaving this fucking dump, or I'm going to get robbed, kind of thing, if I stick around here. Or my kids are going to go to a shitty school. That's usually the number one. So, I don't know. I mean, like, so yeah, doing like mortgage approval and stuff like that. Yeah, you could call that modern day redlining in some respects, but also at the same point in time, I think the bank wouldn't be stupid enough to do anything like that anymore because it's mortgage process, so there's going to be a paper trail behind it, which means auditable, which means after, oh, how many mortgages did you guys do this year? Oh, 10,000. It's like, I'd like a sample of those. So we'd like to test this.
Yeah, and
So
and they have ways of looking at that sample to make sure that your thumb's not on the scale.
oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's called the courthouse. Yeah. It's like, well, let's take a look at the courthouse records here because it's a property transaction. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it is like a lot of arguments about like, modern day, like just systemic racism within the system.
There's a theory. People say that Jim Crow is still alive.
I mean, Jim Crow affected like your grandpa,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is the problem that I have here? Okay, this is where my issues come up. Okay, is you can look at what's presented to you. So we can take the George Floyd situation for example.
Sure.
Okay, now we all have different opinions on that, but I think that we all come down to a base level of like, man, that was fucked up. Okay.
Oh, clearly.
There's a
Yeah.
version of this where I don't know if justice was completely done. I don't know if it was overly punitive. I can't say.
Oh, the appeals court will let us know.
They will, but what I will say is that it is good that this was brought to public attention.
Sure.
Right? However, what I can also say is I can look at the actual data, and the data does not even remotely support the version of events that it is presented to us in terms of what the dangers are regarding the police and the African American community.
No, they're not even close. So
The,
this is something I actually know something about.
talk to me about it.
So
All right.
what is your impression? What do you think the prevailing impression behind the data is?
The prevailing impression of the data is that there is no noticeable bump in terms of police actions against blacks than really any other ethnic group.
I don't think that's true. So
It's not.
Well, that would depend on how you frame the data.
I agree.
So yeah,
I agree.
and you'd have to look at that from a couple different angles to actually get a good idea of it. Okay.
This is
So
what I'm saying.
do,
Yes.
do the police actually have more interactions with people in black communities? The answer is no. Okay, because there's 13% of the population.
Right.
So now, if you look at it per capita, then you get a very different view. And it's like,
correct.
oh, actually, if you live in a black neighborhood, you're going to have encounters with the cops a lot more than if you live in rural Kansas.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So, if you look at it as per capita or as a rate, okay, then yeah, okay. So then the next natural question behind that is like, okay, so what effect does it have? And if you actually take a look at incarceration is a fucking problem for the black community.
Very much so. Yes.
Okay, absolutely. And, you can make a statistically sound argument, all right? One that's not easy to refute, okay? That are individuals who live in black communities much more likely to be arrested, even if they are not guilty of a crime? The answer to that question is yes.
Yes. That's correct.
So, but then if you switch gears on that and go back and look at nominal arrests, that difference disappears at
Correct.
that point in time.
That's what I'm saying.
And yeah, but you can't sit here and say like, all right, well, that means that, the argument that black communities are targeted by police is false. Okay, that's not true. Okay, because that depends on which data set you're looking at. It depends on from which direction you want to look at it. Okay, so the best thing you can say in this situation is undetermined. So, or it's not determinable using the data that we currently have.
No. Okay. So I completely agree with you
Okay.
from that perspective. What I can put to you, okay, is my problem with this isn't that data, for example, because like you've talked about, however you elect to interpret it can lead you to different conclusions.
Yep.
However, what I can give you, okay, in terms of what the mathematics breaks down to, is a refutation against the principle that policing as a whole is a racist institution. Okay? And I'm going to do that with the numbers because of the concept that has gone around in terms of A, defund, and B, all cops are bad.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we can both agree that both those arguments are bullshit.
Well, they're not
So-
just bullshit. I can tell you the numbers because the whole thing is,
I mean, the communities that they police don't even want those things.
well, so what is the basis of the argument of all cops are bastards? What is the basis?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I wouldn't even pay attention to an argument because it's unilateral at that point in time.
Okay.
So if someone ever comes to me and says all something, I'm like, oh, okay, so obviously you have an axe to grind.
Well, yes. Okay. Well, so the underlying principle of this is that this is the argument against the thin blue line is that the good cops know that the bad cops are doing this, ergo they're the problem as well.
Yeah, I've heard that argument.
Okay, here's the problem though. Okay, this is where the math doesn't add up.
Okay.
Okay,
What's the math you're looking at?
so when I looked at basically the math of all criminal transactions, okay, that involved blacks, and this was specifically in regards to presenting this as it's open season on blacks.
By who? Who's making this argument?
Fucking, you do not spend enough time. Well, actually, no. It's probably better for your health, but it is a very popular notion in any kind of online media, right? That it is not safe for you to be black in this country because the cops basically have a target.
Yeah, I've heard that argument. I mean, but okay. I would if someone's making that argument, I'm not going to trust any of their math. All right off the bat. All right, because it's like, okay, so you're using a conclusion and you're going to find facts to back it up. This is backwards.
But that's the problem, Patrick.
Sure.
You cannot present that opposite opinion without catching just a ridiculous amount of flack for it.
I wouldn't care. I turn off the Twitter. So,
No, but what I'm talking about is if you're talking about situations where, again, there is evidence, we can go back to the policeman who supported Kyle Rittenhouse and was fired for it. Okay. Prior to his exoneration. Okay.
Who, the policeman or Rittenhouse?
The cop. The cop basically...
Who was exonerated?
The cop was fired even though Rittenhouse was exonerated. So basically...
So he was fired after Rittenhouse was actually acquitted?
He was fired before the trial. These were comments that he made basically within the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Stating
after the initial shooting?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, he was fired for this. And we're talking about somebody who was now found not guilty by a jury of his peers.
Was the cop reinstated?
Nope.
Okay.
But this is what I'm talking about. So there are real life applications where I'm saying you are expected to either say nothing at all or have this opinion, which is going to be protected.
Or actually present an opinion that is actually grounded in some kind of facts.
But I just told you, he grounded it in facts and was fired for it.
The cop?
Yes.
What math was he using?
It wasn't a question of math. It was in support of this person who was not found guilty at any point. And as the time went on, was proven to be not guilty in a court of law. But he was still fired for this. This is what I'm saying is you can either say nothing or you have a set opinion that you're allowed to say, which is ridiculous.
See, that's why I actually like academia, because you're allowed to have a shitty opinion. So, and you're allowed to have
tenured.
Huh?
If you're tenured.
Even if you're not tenured. So you can publish whatever you need to. So, and then it's out there in the record. So, I mean, and then it's like, okay, so I'm actually going to back this up. Prove me wrong. And if people come at you for that shit, it's like, okay, fine. I mean, that's what we do here. Prove me wrong. All right?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Of course.
And so, like, the whole thing with, like, the arguments about, like, our black communities unfairly, targeted, it's TBD. All right, we've had a 25, 30-year argument about this in academia, specifically in criminology, about this, that is ongoing.
Yes.
Okay, and so new data comes out, so new trends develop, so new ways of looking at the data come out and have to be statistically verified. And so, like, that's like, when I see somebody who's on, like a BuzzFeed article or whatever, all right, who's like, oh, well, this is blah, 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 blah. It's like, all right, have you read about this as much as I have? Okay, because, I mean, I wrote a whole goddamn paper about this.
You did.
And it's like, okay, so let's talk about this, because I was doing that whole thing with incarcerated students.
Yes, you were.
And it's like, all right, did you read this guy? So he's kind of where you start. And, okay, so the first facts you're throwing at me are exactly what he was refuting. So, no, you didn't read that, kind of thing. And I get it, man. I get that, there's like this thing that's going on, that's this constant fist fight. But that fist fight doesn't really drive policy, in the long run. All right? So, I mean, and so a cop gets fired. I guarantee you a police chief out there somewhere is going to get scorched for that. It depends on the community. If it was in Berkeley, he's probably fucked. But if it was in Detroit, he'd probably be all right. He'd get his job back or something like that, But it's like, I don't use that, like, one instance of that to actually take a look and say, okay, so, the debate is settled. It's not settled.
No, of course not. No,
Okay.
the fact that we're talking about it now basically means that it's not settled.
Sure.
Basically, this is the same. This is the same tact I approach when people will go out there and, you're discussing trans athletes or something, and somebody hops in the conversation and just stamps, well, trans rights are human rights.
Oh, right.
Okay,
yeah.
great. That's
Yeah,
fine.
No,
But that
I've
doesn't.
heard that argument before.
It's like, but that doesn't mean it's settled because
Yeah.
obviously we're still debating about it.
No.
So there is no consensus. There is no version of this fact.
Yeah.
Done.
No.
Okay, you're ignoring the science. It's like, fuck you. This
No,
is
I'm not, man.
no. This is clearly still hotly contested because if there were a clear and easy answer,
It'd be solved.
100%.
Yeah.
Right? Now, sometimes it's a question like sometimes the problem is so obvious and coming to a solution that works for everybody, yes, can be a problem. But this is not one of those, well, there's a pothole here, what do we do? Right?
Right.
The argument can be, well, we can't close it down on Tuesday because Tuesday's a big traffic day. Well, we can't close it down on Wednesday. That's, for this. This is when these people need it. Oh, well, what are we going to do?
Oh, my God. It's just going to be a bottle.
You don't have people ripping their shirts off and going fucking World Star on each other.
Hit each other with doorknobs.
Yeah. Because of that. You have to come down to it, and eventually it's like, all right, I say Tuesday, you say Wednesday, who's got a quarter?
Right, yeah.
Okay? So that's that. But in this, where it is more complex, this is clearly not a cut and dry. Oh, okay.
No,
well,
it's not.
Well, this guy says this, so that's that. That's a fact. Fuck you. Don't present it as a fact because it's not.
No, and I don't know, man. I think so. There's a lot of people who are wise to that, and then fortunately, I think there's more people who are getting wise to that, just because of the amount of wheel spinning that's been going on for probably about 6 years.
Yeah.
So, or at least probably longer, probably ever since Trayvon Martin. So,
Yeah.
'cause Trayvon Martin was kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off a wound that nobody really thought was there. So, unless you were living it every day. And so, if you're living it every day, then it was a little bit different. And I think that's why that boiled up so much, is because a lot of people were living with that, even though the entire case turned out to be bullshit.
What I would ask you, what do people still think?
Oh, they
happened
still
in the
think,
case?
that George Zimmerman was some kind of rent-a-cop, walking around when actually Trayvon Martin was beating the shit out of him.
Sure was.
So, but the whole idea behind that, in some respects, is like, okay, so who's the guy who actually made the argument on this one? This isn't my argument, but he made a really good argument about this one. He's like, even though the fact pattern that people wanted to believe wasn't true, it was poetically true, meaning that it spoke to a lot of people. So, which is kind of an interesting way to think about something, because, okay, so even if the fact pattern within that case wasn't necessarily true, and now it's revealed to be untrue, and it doesn't change people's minds, that speaks to a different truth, all right, that people are living. Okay, and it's not necessarily false. That's the one thing that this guy was saying that was really, really kind of insightful. He said it doesn't mean that it's false. It just means that they're going to look for another example that does match their truth. Okay?
Correct.
So, because it'll serve as an example. No, this is how I actually feel. All right? So, because it's actually true and it's actually happening. So, capital T kind of truth. And so that's the whole, okay, so what is actually, going on? And I mean, so, to go back to, the systemic racism kind of idea amongst the police, the whole thing that's been driving that debate for probably about 30 years is the vast, vast difference in incarcerations. So, which is demonstrably true.
Oh, yes. Yes. No doubt about it. And on top of that, the effects of that
Absolutely.
are well measured and well documented.
It's absolutely wrecked black communities across the United States. That is, if you find someone who's like, oh no, it's fine, it's like, no.
What's your definition of fine?
Yeah,
man?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's
what's
like,
your version of fine?
Yeah. So, because if I teleported you to a predominantly black community in the 60s from today, you would be like, holy shit, these people live in fucking paradise. So... And that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that Jim Crow era. So at that point in time, there were excellent, working class black communities in places like Detroit and Cleveland and St. Louis, where you had family units, where you had people who worked, okay, and took pride in work and things like that. And then you can look at it and say, oh, you know what, that war on drugs probably was a fucking bad idea. So And we're starting to come to a consensus on that one. And so that's why, like, I think, like, yeah, Twitter can get mad about, like whatever Twitter gets mad about on a daily basis because it wants instantaneous resolution. But think about, like, when you and I were growing up, the debate about dare and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is slowly being settled by time, where people are like, actually, you know what? This approach is shit. All right, take a look at the Mexican border. Take a look at the cartels. Take a look at all these African American communities across the United States that have been wrecked by crack. All right, and now 20 years, 30 years plus of incarcerating policies on top of it. All right, there's sometimes where you just have to call a duck, and we're kind of getting to that point. So, and it's just, it's like, all right, so I'm sorry, Twitter and, people who want like authoritarian solutions to things, which that's where my opposition gets really strong to just about everything.
Well, remember the system actually works in terms of it has done an exceptional job of keeping idiots like that out of power, which is all the evidence that you need that the system does what it's supposed to.
Does kind of work. Yeah.
But
it doesn't work fast. It's not designed to.
No.
So yeah.
Because that's the other thing is we do reach consensus when an experiment fails.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When Afghanistan goes completely tango uniform, everybody's gonna give Joe Biden shit about it for a month or 2 or 5. But next year, everybody's gonna be like, that was a good idea.
Well, and you can look. I don't think the question will be, and this is not.
Oh, look at George W. Bush. Everybody loves him now for his paintings. They're like, oh well, yeah, his paintings are great, but man, his policies were shit.
Hey, dude, we have gone long enough where the worm has turned on Bill Clinton, who was untouchable.
Oh yeah,
for the longest time. But
yeah, was fucking invincible for about a decade.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
now everybody's like, he's kind of creepy, and we're like, yeah, people were saying that back in the '90s.
They were saying that back in the '90s. Why do we have just accuser after accuser after accuser, and so many things where, well, this guy says he's got this. Well, where's he now? I don't know. I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
Okay, where's this guy? I don't know. I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
It's like, where'd he go? It is a mystery, right? So there is a lot of that, but there's also a lot of, wait, you signed what into legislation?
Right. You signed the crime bill into legislation?
And people used to say that you were the first black president?
Right, yeah. So, yeah, and that's like, I mean, that is so funny too, especially with Joe Biden. His fingers were just all over that fucking thing.
You want to talk about, but I'm going to need your signature on these pages. Like, no problem. No problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign it real big.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that, like, there's a couple pieces of legislation that, like, at the time, I remember how fucking popular that was because they were going to hire, like, 1 million new cops.
Oh, yeah.
Or something. But then it turned into the prison industrial complex. Where it's like, how much does it charge to actually house one of these guys in Colorado? It's like $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
It's like, and you feed him this? He's not eating lobster thermidor every night? Where's the rest of the fucking money? Yeah, exactly. That's it's like, wait a minute, you got this is mandatory spending?
Yeah.
We have to spend money on this before we spend it on colleges? Seriously? Or potholes?
You got guys tearing their shirts off and fucking.
Yeah, now we're hitting each other with bottles and chains.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing, bro. That is the same breakdown when you look into like charities.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, wait, you spend
how much of $1?
How much of $1 actually helps the people in Haiti?
Or the Susan G. Komen Foundation, the one that's the biggest fraud, apparently. I shouldn't say that. That might be slanderous on this, but I don't know. This is a political commentary.
Well, what you can say is they're
allegedly,
up there.
yeah,
Allegedly.
There we go.
Yeah, but yeah. So this is where I sort of have like an axe to grind with accepting certain things as facts, and like you were talking about, it's the same thing where like the Zimmerman thing didn't pan out. The classic backpedal on it that we've been doing for the past 20 years is, but it started a conversation.
Yeah, I've heard that one a lot. I'm not necessarily going to say that one's necessarily false, or it's not worthy of consideration. But it's like what you were talking about earlier with the components of critical race theory. Okay, there are parts of it
Take the parts.
yeah, that you can think about a little bit and say like, oh, okay, so what was different between I can't remember when that happened. It was like 2009 or
Something like that.
something like that. So what was different between 2005 and that point in time? All right, what actually changed? Were we just like ignoring this race issue at that time, or did we all get to the point in time where we're like, oh, it's colorblind society, without actually addressing the fact that okay, so if it's colorblind society, why don't we actually have more people who are in STEM colleges who are black? All right. So, should that matter at this point in time? Well, if it matters to the community because those jobs don't come back to the community, then fucking yeah, it does matter.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, so fine. All right, point made. Worthy of consideration. Let's talk about it. As opposed to it's like, well, don't use it as a bat to hit me with now. I'm not going to respond well to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem with this here is this is again the issue that I have with presenting things as like institutional racism without evidence to back it up, to be able to say like, all right, will exist. The problem is eventually you do get to white people on both sides of the political aisle that say, what the fuck did I do? It's like,
yeah.
What do you mean I'm a racist? Like, I hired a black guy at the office, whatever. It's
well, and that's the whole thing. It's like, it's like the reparations argument. It's like, my grandparents got here in the 1920s. So do I owe you money? So
my mom's from Korea.
Your mom's from Korea. Yeah. What do you? You're right. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's kind of like one of the points too. Is like you can push that argument so far, where all of a sudden you start like funneling down, and this is the whole thing with intersectionality. Okay, it's literally just funneling down. Who does the most consideration go to? And that's why nobody can ever agree on that, because eventually it's like, okay, well, who do we vote off the island next?
Right.
Kind of thing. It's like, well, I deserve to be here because, my great-grandfather was a slave. It was like, do you really? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Compared to like, this person over here whose parents were killed in the Holocaust and came over here as an orphan. I don't know.
What I do is well, during the war, these guys' parents were interned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or okay, so it's just becomes like, all right, so rather than like thinking about ways in which we should divvy up something that we're going to have to take from somebody else, that's I think where some of the argument about institutional racism comes in. Is like, okay, so what can we do within the mechanisms of government that solve this problem over time? In some ways. So I don't know. It's a worthy discussion. So
it is a no clear answers kind of argument,
that's why
which is why
argue about it. Yeah,
which is why people putting things on Twitter as facts,
right?
And just accepting that people of color can't be racist.
Yeah.
Man, fuck you. Yeah.
So
fuck yeah, I'm a minority. I can be racist.
Yeah,
I can be racist all day.
Yeah,
it just depends on what the power dynamic is.
And I mean that's the whole critical race theory thing, is follow the power dynamic. And so it's turned into like the dogs are all catching the car at the same time. Right. And now they're gonna fight over who gets to ride it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just it's almost like, I mean, I don't know, Jeff. I'm not like really good at making future predictions and stuff, but we could end on one today.
We didn't even talk about the movie too.
Oh yeah, we gotta do that. Yeah. That movie's badass.
Yeah.
So okay.
Finish the thought, because I'll finish.
The backlash is coming. So because it's starting to push even people like me off the bus, where it's like I don't want to even engage with this anymore. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where, like now at work, if someone were to come up and accuse me as a racist or a misogynist, I'd say fuck you, prove it.
Right.
And so and I'm like, I wouldn't even like take the moment at this point in time to think about like, well, am I? I'd probably do that for a minute, but I know like solidly within my own being that I'm not. Okay. And so now and instantaneously it's like, what do you want? Okay. Do you want my job? Do you want my office? Do you just want to cause trouble? You want an A? What is it? And so it's not like taking you seriously anymore at this point in time. And so if they're pushing guys like me off that bus, then there's a lot of people who, like in my situation, who still fully consider that and go do soul searching or make accommodations and stuff. So they got a lot more to chew through, but they're going to chew through them all eventually. Yeah. And they're going to turn them all into fucking Republicans or something.
This is, yeah. Because all you have to do to find yourself in that position is have the mechanism turned on you at some point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because eventually you just say, well, "Fuck those guys."
Yeah.
I mean, this is again.
It's like I'm not going to carry water for you guys if you're going to throw it back at me. So come on. So
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, I come from that school of classically liberal, right?
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with the current left. Nothing to do. The messages are entirely different.
There is no current left, man. It's just it's all the dogs like chasing at that last bumper. I don't know, man. They're going to start biting each other even more. So I've already seen it, the split between the Marxists and the leftists.
Oh yeah.
So and I don't know, man. So it's always been like those are kind of my canaries in the coal mine that I've watched for years. So
Yeah.
So, but like, I mean, even like, there's like no consistency, and there won't be because there's no consensus. So the problem is like the right's just as bad right now. I mean, on a certain level, it's not as bad. Because
I would argue it's far more consistent.
I would say it's more consistent, but I would say it's got a level of crazy to it that, like, the zombie crazy is kind of weird, man. It's definitely off-putting.
Let me say it this way: the current all-stars in the right now.
Oh my gosh!
You would this like if you're saying
It's like clown college, man.
it is when you like you go back and you say, all right, so we're building our basketball team. It's like, all right, so who's our starting center? It's like, well, how about that gun-toting girl from Pueblo?
Yeah, she's not from Pueblo, man.
Or not,
she's from Rifle, Colorado.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Really appropriate.
I'm sorry, but
she represents Pueblo, so.
but you come
And
on,
a shocking number of people in that very blue town really love her. So yeah.
well, I understand.
Yeah.
There's a component to it that I do understand, but there is you are not supposed to be a statesman of this tribe yet. You're new, and it's the same token where you have people floating around like, oh well, our starting point guard over here is AOC.
Oh my
God.
God.
She's a fucking scam, grifter, fucking con artist from top to bottom. She sells it really well.
I think she was actually pretty legit when she got there, but I don't think she is anymore. So
Not a chance.
I think she was actually pretty legit when she got there.
Well, no.
Yeah.
But it didn't take her but 6 months to recognize herself as AOC the brand.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right.
I'd be TikTok famous. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Tip
Yeah.
O'Neill was rolling over in his grave. You guys don't know who he is.
Not
do
even.
you?
But yeah, the current all-stars on the all-star teams of the Republicans and the Democratic side, I'm sorry,
I think the Democrats got a deeper bench, but you have to get down to like guys like Polis.
you do.
yeah.
Well, and this is the thing is, the starters aren't necessarily putting up good numbers. They've just been there a while.
They're terrible.
So until that zombified clump of electrically charged cells named as Nancy Pelosi actually moves and actually gives that play. Well, supposedly she's not gonna. You never know until it happens.
It's too early to call the midterms.
But this is this is like the Brady era of the Democratic Party has to change. You have to get new life in there. You have to, because currently the crop of talent versus the existing talent do not see eye to eye at all. And it is totally fucking up the...
I think that there's a layer of middle kind of like up and comers.
Yeah.
But they're getting upstarted by guys like Pete Buttigieg now, and I mean, AOC's not going to make it.
No, of course not. But she's a lightning rod for.
She's going to get her own TV show on MSNBC within 5 years and not be a thing. So yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lauren Boebert goes the same way. So, I mean, all Fox News has to do is dangle a check with like 4 more zeros than she's used to on it, and she's gone. So, I mean, that's the thing is like none of those people have staying power. There are a few like here and there, maybe on the Republican side, that do have a little bit more staying power in the long run, but they're playing it really cool right now because they don't know what the Orange Menace is going to do.
I think we leave on it. Orange Menace is a great place to leave. Patrick, it is shocking to me, absolutely shocking that the dude has not been in office, but they still talk about him way more than the guy that's in charge right now.
That does not fucking surprise me at all. It does not surprise me at all, because if Donald Trump did one thing for anybody out there, including his family, including himself, is that he buttered the bread of CNN and MSNBC like nobody's business. So, and he fucking knows it too.
Yeah.
So, you know, he saved those organizations from extinction, basically, to the point in time where he's even managed to piss off Fox News.
Which is amazing, yeah.
It's not his audience, man.
Yeah.
So his fucking audience. It's all the crazies out there who think, well, I call him the Orange Menace because he is a fucking menace. So I don't think the man can tie his own shoes straight. So let alone handle the nuclear football. You know, but at the same point in time, I also recognize that, like, he's smart enough to know that if he ever wants free press, all he has to do is just bitch about something for 5 minutes. And he can go right back to the golf course, because there are legions of people out there who think he's the end of fucking democracy as we know it. So, now, fortunately, that legion's getting smaller. Okay?
Yeah.
That legion is getting smaller. But there was something about, like, just the way he approached things. And I can empathize with him on a certain level, too, because there was not a presidential bone in that man's body. So, a lot of people didn't want that, which is fine. But I did.
Right.
But I did. Okay? I always want to be proud of my president, whoever he is. Okay? And, you know, that guy was a piece of shit. And still is. All right? Now, that doesn't mean I think Joe Biden's a good president. But at least he's a president. You know?
Well, no, I think that I can't even tell you what my feelings would be if Hillary Clinton had taken that office.
Exactly. So that was the hardest election I've ever gone through.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, and I hope we never have one like that again. So if it comes down to the point in time where it's fucking Hulk Hogan versus Marjorie Taylor Greene, so I think it's time to move to Canada.
Well, sometimes I'm telling you, I don't know how it works out. Sometimes you look at all the talent out there, but God, sometimes, man, it is like Tennessee and the Rams are in the Super Bowl, and you're like, I don't know anybody who's actually a fan of these teams. You guys aren't really all that talented, but somehow you guys managed to squeak through, because on any given Sunday, you and here he is, and then you're wondering, why am I watching this game?
Right, I know, and he's like, man, I invested 162 games in it. Why did it come to this? You know, so what do I do?
And that's, again, I hate to be so absolutely Banazakian on this, but there comes a point where the man was right. Said, well, who do you got in this Super Bowl? Said, are either of these teams the Raiders? Said, no.
Yeah.
It's like, well, fuck them both then.
Fuck them both then, yeah.
It's like, wow, man.
I don't know, man. I mean, I still want, I mean, even like maybe the first 6 months of Trump's presidency, I was like, well, maybe he'll do a good job. He's going to stand up to China and stuff like that. He's going to do some things. All right. But then he's just like, get off the fucking Twitter. Oh my God, dude. You watch more TV than is like recommended by anybody, so, including the networks that are making a lot of money off of you. It's like, get your fucking ass, get off your ass and do your job, you know. And he didn't do shit. He didn't do a goddamn thing, you know. And that's exactly why I soured on Obama during the last 4 years. It's like, oh, you're not going to do shit,
man.
You're not going to do anything. So you've got your signature piece of legislation, which. Okay, admittedly, it was probably a better bill than people are willing to give it credit for now. So, because I did actually check rates not too long ago, I was like,
they've gotten better.
They've gotten way better, and I was like, okay, cool, you know. But then the back half, it was like, end this fucking war, end it now. It was like, no, I'm going to drone more people. And it's like, fuck you, motherfucker. Yeah.
The dude got so drone happy. Oh, well, again,
dude, he droned more than anybody. So yeah.
Well, it's the same thing where. Patrick, we can talk COVID numbers.
Yeah.
Okay? And there are a lot of people that are putting the blame on the last guy. Fucking way more people have died under Biden's care.
Neither of those matter. It has nothing to do with either one of them.
I know. But that's what I'm saying is people are calling this the COVID problem is fucking the last guy's fault.
It's
Like
the CCP's fault. We both know that. So, yeah, we both know that. And so, and not because they engineered the motherfucker, it's because they fucked up, they completely flubbed up the response to it.
they flubbed up the response.
yeah.
They lie about
They
fucking
lied
everything.
About it. Yeah. They lied to Donald Trump about it. They say, oh, no, it's cool. Don't worry about it. So a little bit of tea, you'll be okay. And Donald Trump's like, oh, okay, cool.
Sure.
And then he got mad later. I think I told you that story.
But yeah. Well, and that's when he kind of flipped on him, right?
Right,
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, fuck you guys.
fucking lied to me, yeah.
Well, Patrick, let's go to another regime. What happened in Chernobyl? How did people find out about it?
Oh, they found out about it from Radio Free America. So
Well, and people had to put their lives on the line to spread messages about what was going on. Why?
Yeah.
Because if they didn't act on it, fucking Europe was going to be in big trouble.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And this is the same shit where it's like, if you guys aren't honest about the problem,
yeah.
right? If you tell us, hey, this is a little thing, this ain't no big deal right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what Google Earth is showing you, but the ground really isn't glowing green over here, guys. That's Photoshop,
Yeah.
right? If you just fucking lie about this shit, nobody can help you,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same thing where in China, that stupid government of theirs is like, we're gonna lie about everything. There's no big problem, right? Just and this is not a representative of the people. I'm picking on their stupid government with so many people who this guy has to lie to save his job for this guy, and it goes all the way up.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, man. That's a whole nother episode because I've actually been thinking about that a lot more lately.
have you?
I have. I kind of agree with the ADV guys, so that it's not going anywhere. It's not going to fucking change.
It's not. It's
And so, getting upset about what they do and railing about it is just raising my own blood pressure because fundamentally it's not my problem. It's the Chinese people have got to do something about that. And if they choose not to, it's going to be bad down the road. So I'd prefer not to think about that.
Well, so again, this is sort of like how we started with CRT here is it is ultimately self-defeating.
Sure.
And one of two consequences will happen here where, again, we have seen world powers come and go, right? Not in the United States, because, Patrick, I can ask you, when did the United States become the world's top GDP?
Oh, I don't know. It was after World War I, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere in
Before.
there. Yeah, it was pretty close to it.
It was before.
So-
Yeah, it was before then. And so our actual rise to being the top economy is in a year that starts with 18. The very end.
Yeah.
Very close,
Yeah.
right? So this train has been running for a long time. We have seen number 2 change several times since we've been at the top spot.
Many
right?
times.
Where was Britain? Where was Japan? Where was so we can talk about the Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
What we've seen here in terms of what China has done in terms of desperately trying to move up to that number 1 spot,
Yeah.
they have completely mortgaged their future. And so
No,
go on.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, just like the effects of the drug war and stuff. The consequences are already baked into the cake. Okay?
You gotta
it's going to
mitigate
pan itself out, all right? So, the whole thing, and I can't remember which podcast they were talking about this. It might have been last Friday's, I'm not sure. It was a question or something like that, but it's no, it's not going to change. It's not going to have internal strife and stuff like that. Because it's not designed for that. Okay, and so the whole thing is designed to be inward looking. It's going to have its own natural consequences. The question is, do we force an arbitrary consequence? All right. So, or do they force an arbitrary consequence? And considering the fact that they're probably the number 3 nuclear power in the world, there's a distinct possibility that everything around us turns to ash in 10 years because we fucked that up. Okay? So, I think, honestly, on the CPB and stuff like that, it's time to just wait and see. Because really, when it comes down to it, all right, either Xi Jinping's going to go and I want to unify all the Chinas, and the United States, with its inability to actually exercise any kind of wisdom in its foreign policy, will provoke a war that will result in like a single U.S. aircraft carrier group getting nuked, which means all of the world will get nuked within 27 minutes after that. I prefer not to think about that because I can't do anything about it.
So if it's going to happen,
I don't think it's going to happen.
well, no, but if it is going to happen, just fiddle around for another 35, 40 years. I'll be on my way out. And whatever world exists beyond that will not be my problem.
Yeah, that will not, but it will be my daughter's problem. And so I'm not,
Okay, so if you want to roll for 65 years, whatever, that's up to you.
I think it'll resolve itself within 10, to tell you the truth. So Xi Jinping's in his late 70s. So if he lives to be 95, like Deng Xiaoping or something like that,
yes,
that's another 20 years.
Yes.
All right, it'll sort itself out.
No, what I will say is there is a chance for change, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of chances for change in ways that we don't typically view change, right? So there's the vision that most people are going to have in terms of change is storming the Capitol,
right?
Burn it all down, install a new government. But realistically, the economic conditions, which are what are going to be the impetus for change, are things that can install reforms without bloodshed because it's like, well, we got to do something.
Yep. Like it's baked into the cake, man. So,
and it's the same. It is. You and I had this discussion before. You asked me how healthy is this country. I say it's great because people are protesting, people are outside, people are doing stuff. They're speaking their opinions, and they're not being shot. Because when they start getting shot, that means that you are deathly afraid of the people toppling your government.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, and I mean that's that. Okay, so we tried to end the podcast like 3 times now.
Or we'll change the topic. Because we saw a movie and we want to talk about it.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that because we're already well over an hour and a half here.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know. You guys, well, we get going.
I can't see the clock.
So, that's true. You guys show notes there.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing, like it's baked. The solution to the problem is already baked into the cake. So, and the same thing's true with like almost every problem that we have in this country right now. The solution is already baked into the cake because the entire system is designed in some ways to be self-replicating and self-correcting over time, unlike the CCP. All right. And so whenever you're upset about whether it be COVID, whether it be Black Lives Matter, whether it be something, just understand that like, and the fact that you're not getting shot for agitating, that is distinctly what doesn't solve problems. And that makes them worse down the road.
Yes.
But all those things, since those things are not happening, the solution to whatever your problem is, it's already baked in the cake. And by the time you see the solution, there will already be new problems for you to bitch about on Twitter.
You know what? That is a pretty good ending right there. Yeah. That's a new promise to bitch about on Twitter. I think that's a good button. So I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Pat.
And I say it's
I'm
bedtime.
Way out of coffee. So
coffee is cooked, bedtime. And just that button, just